Good morning. As we come on the air and a special report, NBC News has learned that Paul Manafort, the one-time chairman of the Trump presidential campaign, has agreed with federal prosecutors to plead guilty. This is part of special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation.
NBC's Kelly O'Donnell is at the courthouse with this breaking news. Kelly, what can you tell us?
Well, this is a big development, Hoda, and what it means is that after being convicted in a separate trial in Virginia, now Paul Manafort, the former chairman of the Trump campaign, will not go through another trial. This is significant because Paul Manafort had resisted any efforts over a long period of time to cooperate with the special counsel or prosecutors. A big question this morning is, with this anticipated guilty plea, will he actually cooperate with the broader Russia investigation? That's a question we don't have an answer to yet. We're here at the courthouse where it is expected that Paul Manafort would appear personally. This has been anticipated in recent days, but the deal just coming together as we expect this morning on a range of counts that deal with lying to officials, fraud, money laundering. This stems from Manafort's longtime business working on behalf of countries and officials like Ukraine. And that has been what brought him into the spotlight of Robert Mueller's team. Paul Manafort was convicted in Virginia just weeks ago on money laundering and tax evasion charges, but was convicted on just 8 of 18 that were presented to a jury. And yet that could put him behind bars at age 69 for most of the rest of his life. Big question, what would the sentencing be? Will Paul Manafort cooperate? And what does this mean for the Trump White House? White House officials have not been commenting, directing all questions to outside lawyers, but certainly the specter of this is a big shadow on President Trump. Paul Manafort worked for the president's campaign for a period of months. He had the highest position during the time of the 2016 convention. And this will be a question. What does it mean for President Trump? Savannah? Hoda?
It's a big moment. Paul Manafort deciding to not have a trial, having just been convicted on half the charges against him, jury deadlocked as to the others. He was facing another trial in September. Now with a guilty plea, he won't have the trial. But as Kelly points out, the question is he going to cooperate with prosecutors? Is he, in a sense, flipping, a word that's become rather popular in political circles these days? Let's go right to Kristen Welker. She's at the White House, and important to note, Paul Manafort was the campaign chairman. He was associated with the campaign for several months, but the conduct for which these charges were filed all stem from activity before he was the Trump campaign chairman, and that's an important distinction.
It's a very important distinction, Savannah. And again, this is an expected plea deal. We anticipate that will officially be announced at about 11:30 today, Eastern Time, when Paul Manafort is in court. The White House watching this very closely. In terms of the strategy here, it's been striking. President Trump, his top officials here, have really aimed to distance himself from Paul Manafort, despite the fact, as you say, Savannah, as Kelly just mapped out, Manafort did serve on the president's campaign for 5 months, 3 of those as campaign chair, including during that critical time during the Republican National Convention. President Trump tweeting about this throughout the course of his court proceedings, saying that he's being treated worse than Al Capone in one tweet. We know that there has been widespread speculation about whether President Trump would perhaps pardon Paul Manafort publicly. He hasn't weighed in on that at all. Again, just reverting to those talking points, really distancing himself from Paul Manafort. So we know he's watching this very closely. I've reached out to the White House. I've reached out to President Trump's attorneys. So far, no reaction. Remember, Savannah and Hoda, this White House still very much closely monitoring Hurricane Florence, as they also pay close attention what's happening in that D.C. courtroom today.
Yeah, so we will be watching that courtroom closely, watching whether or not this expected plea deal really happens. There will be what's called a superseding indictment, a new set of charges filed. We'll see if any charges were dropped. We'll see if Manafort is going to cooperate and what that might mean for this larger investigation by Robert Mueller. Lots to cover. This is an NBC News special report. Most of you will return now to Today. I'm Savannah Guthrie alongside Hoda Kotb. This has been an NBC News special report.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.